And that's the key to starting where you are. Acceptance. Dropping the shoulds and shouldn'ts from the situation and the good and bad and just taking what's given and starting there. And really, this is not a new idea, but it's something we have to be reminded about sometimes, which is why we have sayings like playing the hand you're dealt, or taking lemons and making lemonade. We need to simply accept the situation we're in and make plans to move forward. Crying, as they say, over the spilt milk of life won't solve our problems. The song that I remember is, I'll never stop the rain by complaining, right? That's true. It, of course, doesn't mean we should ignore our problems. Of course, but we should remember that the problems we're dealt in our lives are part of who we are. And if we judge those things as bad, or complain about them instead of moving forward, we're hurting ourselves instead of helping. The bad things that happen to us in our lives are part of who we are. If we judge them as wrong or shameful, we are, in fact, judging ourselves. And acceptance doesn't only apply to our life circumstances, but to other people, and especially ourselves. Before we can accept others into our family, for example, we need to accept who we are as people, the good and the bad, without judgment or shame. We need to simply realize who we are and realize who we are. That is, we need to accept who we are and make that person a reality, that is, realize. Make that person a reality in the world instead of putting on a false facade that we want others to see. When we accept ourselves and show others that we accept ourselves as who we are, then they will more readily accept us too, with all of our flaws, faults, and errors. For me, personally, when I was in university, I was going through a rough time. You know, I was taking a full load in school. I was busy. I was working 4 part-time jobs. My parents had just gotten divorced. My girlfriend dumped me. It was like a country music song, right? Everything was going wrong. And I realized that I had spent all my life to that point judging the things that had happened to me and the things that I did and said and should have done and should have said. And realized that those were judgments on myself as a person. And it didn't allow me to move forward. What I needed to do was forgive myself. And one of the parts of accepting where we are and starting where we are is accepting ourselves and the people with whom we are in relationships. The word forgiving, as seen here, can actually be broken down into 2 separate words. So forgiving is forgiving. It's nothing new, I'm sure you've heard it before. One-sided forgiveness doesn't mean anything. Forgiveness has its most power when it is given or shared with the person who has done wrong. Forgiving someone and not telling them leads to more tension, because the perceived wrongdoer doesn't know the whole story. They don't know that they've been forgiven. They may treat you with some angst or standoffishness because they think they haven't been forgiven. We must face the person for our own sake and theirs and say to them, I forgive you. Withholding forgiveness altogether, on the other hand, is an all too common practice, unfortunately, as it gives the person who owes the forgiving power over another. Not forgiving someone lets the wronged person have control over someone they may not have otherwise been able to control. Or perhaps we thrive on the sympathy that comes with the role of the martyr. But in either case, withholding forgiveness is an unhealthy way to maintain a relationship, whether it's at school, at work, at church, or in an otherwise loving relationship. Forgiving is easy, they say, but what about forgetting? We know the saying, forgive and forget. There's a lot of value to that statement. But if we do forget, then we're liable to make the same mistakes again or to allow another person to harm us in the same way. We can't forget past transgressions of others or of our own, but we can forgive them and accept them as part of our past and as who we are. We can stop judging those actions that people have done against us and stop holding them and allowing them to define us. Instead, we can celebrate them as part of what makes us who we are. We can accept ourselves and forgive ourselves and move on with our lives, knowing that we have become better people for the experience. The realization that we cannot change the past, but can work with those around us to move into the future in a faithful and trusting way, is what it means to start where you are. And where are you? You are here, in this room, with all the other people around you. You're also here, near the corner of 7th Avenue and Rosemont Boulevard. You are here. Vous êtes ici, au Quebec. We are here. And it's hard to remember sometimes that we are here too. The third rock from the sun, as they say. We are part of a global community. And one of the places that we can very rarely remember that we are, that only God can truly fathom, is part of a larger universe created from the Big Bang 15 billion years ago. And here we are at home in the universe. The universe, God's holy creation, has come all this way over all this time to create you. You are here, and this is where you start.